Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian show. Viewers, as you know, President Donald Trump is the 47th President of the United States. And now that he is President, what exactly does it mean for the world? What it means for India? To discuss all this, I have Professor Madhav Nalapat. He is our editorial, the Sunday Guardian editorial director, and he's a geopolitical analyst. He's very well known with contacts all over the world. Thank you, Professor, for coming on the show. Welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Joyeeta. Apart from the fact that, like me, you've been a supporter of Donald Trump for quite some time. I began in 2015. I think you began in 2016.
Well, actually, yeah, I thought that
Supporter
Donald
means
Trump is,
somebody who likes the guy and
yes.
who thinks well of him, unlike those who have the opposite view.
No, I think we are part of a large, number of Indians who think that Donald Trump will be good, not only for America, that he will be good for India. In fact, one of the latest polls conducted by a Western media house, it found that over 80% of Indians, 84, 85, around that range of Indians, they think that Donald Trump is good for America, that Donald Trump is good for peace, and Donald Trump is good for, um, you know, America, of course, peace, and India and Indians. So, why do you think Indians in general are so positive about Donald Trump?
Well, I'd like to say that Indians are sensible people. The what we call the common man is actually much more, or the common lady is much more sensible than the what we call the slightly more elite groups, whether it's in academia or whether it's in other fields. The fact is, Joyita, that back in 2015, I could openly say that Donald Trump is going to come as the US president. In 2016 also, I kept that. This time around, you'll notice in my writing in Sunday Guardian, I have continuously said he's got the edge, he's got the edge, he's got the edge. What I really meant to convey was that he's going to make it. And of course, thanks to Joe Biden and his mistakes. But I couldn't say so openly because the culture had become so toxic. Political correctness had completely overtaken correctness, with the result that if you say that Donald Trump is going to come as the 47th president of the United States, you are going to be in trouble. I mean, there may not be physical violence, but some people will cut you off from their group of friends, etc. So I had to be diplomatic and say he has the edge, he has the edge. And you'll recall many of my writings in Sunday Guardian saying that he has the edge. I couldn't come out front and say it because of the political lack of political correctness of that. The climate has become so divisive and toxic since 2015 that it's incredible. And hopefully now that Donald Trump has come, we will go back to a much better climate in which we can discuss matters freely. And one of the first steps that Trump took was who abandoning censorship, and there's been so much of censorship. You remember, for example, on COVID-19, anybody who had a different point of view from Dr. Fauci and the NIH, and of course the Wuhan, essentially thinking in sync with each other. Not surprisingly, Dr. Fauci was one of the funders of the Wuhan Virology Institute. Well, anybody beyond that was completely outside the pale. You couldn't express yourself. It was either you accept Fauci completely or zero. So I think Joe has done a very sensible thing by pardoning Fauci. I think he would have been one of the earliest targets of the new administration, some of the security picks of the new administration.
So when you are
Joyita.
talking about the health, now since we, got started talking about health, Trump has announced the, withdrawal of the US from the World Health Organization. What are the likely implications of that?
Look, Joyita, And I mean, I think Trump has based his experience on COVID. And the reality is that, COVID, frankly, was his undoing. uh, Everybody, so many people in the public bought the Fauci doctrine, so to speak, which essentially was the Wuhan doctrine, that it was, there was some mysterious intermediate. They were talking about bats. They were talking about other forms of rodents. They were talking about some wet market where live animals are sold as food. Nobody talked about a lab leak. If you talked about a lab leak, you were instantly excommunicated. Trump has chosen as the new chief of the institution that basically does a lot for U.S. health. A gentleman who was a doctor who was blunt from the very beginning about COVID-19, and frankly, who warned that COVID-19 vaccine could lead to all kinds of complications. And I can tell you, Joyita, that's not. At the same time, it would not have any effect on your getting COVID or not getting COVID. Well, the fact is that my wife Lakshmi was smarter than I was. She had no vaccine. I took two vaccines, and we both got COVID. And quite frankly, I think that the side effects, etc., of COVID in so many people, whether they're cardiac issues or other issues, you know, pulmonary issues. There's so much of study coming out, but the reality is even that study has been buried till now because of the large pharma companies who cleaned up tens and tens of billions of dollars in profit as a consequence of selling this idea that COVID was a deadly disease. When the fact is, from the very beginning, I think I had pointed that out in some of my, at least in broadcasts and I think my writing as well, less than 3% was who had a mortality rate. 3% of mortality rate is not very high. I mean, you had the Nipah virus in Kerala, which is way, way above in mortality. Kerala controlled it, but COVID went uncontrolled because the Chinese state banned travel within China, outside Wuhan, outside that particular province, and allowed travel of people from Wuhan and other parts of China who had been to Wuhan all over the world. So the
So when
virus
we are,
spread all over the world.
so you see, if Trump has some kind of an anger, of he has every reason to be, angry with WHO, which allowed the virus to spread. Now the thing is that China. This brings us to China. You mentioned China. Trump has every reason to be angry with China as well, and he has been talking about tariffs and all. But he also invited President Xi Jinping to his inauguration. It's a different matter that he did not come. Why do you think that invitation went out? And it seems that we are being told that Trump may also go to one of his first foreign visits may even be to Beijing.
Look, Joyita, let's understand one thing very clearly. Meetings between foreign leaders are quite common. Even, Reagan and Gorbachev. Reagan called the USSR the evil empire, you'll remember. They met, and they met at Reykjavik, and they discussed many things. And at the same time, very frankly, uh, inviting somebody over or not inviting somebody over, well, it could only mean Xi Jinping decided that what Trump is going to tell him will be very, very unpleasant. And so he sent his vice president instead, who frankly has as much power as the vice president of the United States, which is zero. So he has sent his vice president instead, so that he won't be accused of, what do I say, of insulting the Trump inauguration committee. But the fact of the matter is that we sent Jaishankar over, our external affairs minister. He's been right there in the front row,
Yeah, the
along
first
with
seat on the front row, in the front
absolutely,
row.
absolutely. He was
So,
treated with
so
great
what
honor.
message was it giving out? He was sitting with prime ministers and all.
Well, the message is very clear that Trump is very clear. This is the era of the Indo Pacific. This is the era. where Asia is way more important than Europe. And that's why so many European governments don't like Trump, because they are completely Eurocentric. You heard of what's called navel gazing. This is Euro gazing on the part of the European countries. And I wouldn't say everybody, because frankly, all of those who were Euro gazing, they went and stumbled into the Ukraine war. And everybody who has stumbled into the Ukraine war and supercharged it, led by Biden and Boris Johnson, unfortunately later on by Rishi Sunak also, I don't think he had much of a choice, has done very badly in subsequent elections. Poor old Biden was forced to step aside. Kamala Harris stood by Ukraine, and that is her downfall. Apart from standing by Biden, of course, which is another reason. Every person who was supercharging the Ukraine conflict lost, or is about to lose. You will see Macron, for example, doing extremely badly in in his party, so to speak, in the election. In Germany, you're likely to get the AfD getting a record number of votes and therefore seats, a record. People are talking of 30%, it may be even more. Le Pen, Le Pen's party, Le
Marine
Pen
Le
is
Pen.
likely, she's standing to be very possibly the next president of France, at least in a runoff election. Meloni has already come to power in Italy. I mean, she's been rather moderate, but these days I think she can be a little more open. I think the fact is that Trump has ensured that correctness prevails over political correctness. And that is the opposite of censorship. What has been done for because of COVID and Ukraine, by the way, in the European and the Atlanticist media, completely one-sided narrative. Anybody who goes apart from that, oh, he or she's that's not correct, is not sound. I mean, what do you mean not sound? The fact is that those of us who went against this Ukraine, sacrosanct value of Ukraine, the fact is, Joyeeta, Ukraine was, lost these provinces in 2014. Did Germany collapse? Did France collapse? Did Britain collapse? Did the whole of the rest of Europe collapse? Rubbish. To say
So
that
what do you
Ukraine
think?
is central to security of Europe, which is what is just used to justify the vast amount spent on Zelensky, is rubbish. And unfortunately, Biden and company sent so much of money to Ukraine, essentially free of cost. And some of us pointed out, again, publicly, I'm happy to say, in the case of Ukraine and Russia, I pointed it out from the very beginning of this active phase of the conflict in February 2022, that, Ukraine, all is going to happen is Ukrainians are going to die and Ukraine is going to be destroyed. And that's exactly what has happened. And the more this war continues, the more Ukraine will be destroyed. And Russia wanted a limited purpose. It's achieved about 80% of that purpose. It'll probably achieve 90, 95% and then stop, provided Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Not that, frankly, that NATO will come to defense of any member that's attacked, stands. The Turk Stream pipeline was attacked. Turkey is a NATO country. What has NATO done? Nothing. So, frankly, Joyita, I mean,
So what is the future of the Ukraine war and the future of NATO in the time of Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump has been
look,
very unhappy with NATO.
naturally, NATO is busy planning for the next war and fighting the next war on the basis of its experience in fighting the last war, which, by the way, was with Serbia in 1999, if I remember. The only war NATO has fought and won, of course, in Europe is against Serbia, which is slightly different from Russia in terms of scale. Like Ukraine is, Serbia even more so. The fact of the matter is, the new war, if at all a kinetic war comes, and I hope it's avoided, it will be with China. And that war is going to be very, very different from the from the war that has been fought in Serbia, where it's completely one-sided. And if you look at the record of NATO, look at the record in Asia, in Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, complete failure. So the future of NATO is bright, provided NATO configures itself for the modern century and for modern warfare and shifts away from this Euro gazing habit of his and focuses on the Indo-Pacific. It can do that, and I think people are coming to power in Europe who want to do that and will probably stand by Trump as he helps to do that by giving the right advice, including that NATO needs to spend on its own defense. I mean, you can't get a free ride on the back of the Americans forever.
So
You're
what
asking
about
about WHO.
so what
What,
about the
what, what is
Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, Russia-Ukraine war, in my view, it's going to end very soon, and thank God for Ukrainian people, because Trump is going to switch off the faucet. Germans are already fed up of it. Um, the poor old Scholz is paying the price. French are fed up of it. Italians are fed up of it. I think Meloni is going to slowly speak up on that matter. The British are fed up of it, and Keir Starmer is going to create a huge problem for his party in the next polls or in by elections by standing by the Ukraine war. He's fallen into the same trap. So, this is the point, frankly.
Now, so when we are looking at Mr. Trump, here I'm going to talk a little bit about India-US relations under Mr. Trump. You see, Mr. Biden initially was not bad for India at all. It was pretty good. It was under him that the ISET was signed. It was he gave a lot of backing to India during the G20 summit. So, but towards the end, or even but in between, there were problems and all. What exactly went wrong in the India-US relations, if at all? Or what happened, you think?
Well, I'll tell you, the problem is the enormous influence of the Sino Wahhabi lobby uh, on United States politics. Both lobbies are very, very powerful, unfortunately. And in the White House and National Security Council, they you had people who are closely aligned with the Wahhabis or with China or with both in very high positions on the security establishment, which is why Mike Falls, who hopefully will soon be confirmed, he said by 1201, all the previous National Security Council members need to be out of their offices. That's why he said that. So look at COVID. Look at the record on COVID again. What the WHO record on COVID is nothing to write home about. So fortunately, in India, Prime Minister Modi is a very quick learner. We never had a vaccine mandate. So many European countries had a vaccine mandate. They behaved like dictatorships, where COVID is concerned, where Ukraine is concerned, dictatorships over the press, and they loved that. Whether it's they love exercising power over people. And the fact is, ultimately, is the people who are the most sensible, Joyita.
So when we are looking ahead at India, well, I have a theory. Let me just sound it out. I mean, sound you out about it. The thing is that Biden knew, but I think increasing deterioration in Biden's health that had an impact on India-US relations. For example, what happened in Bangladesh. So would you say that there's a possibility of something like that happen, that because Biden was not fully capable of what he was doing, as to function as president, people took advantage of that and kind of tried to throw a spanner in the works?
Well, look, the problem with Biden is that his memory is fixed on his senatorial days when Europe was all very important, and and when Russia was the big bad wolf. Unfortunately, Clinton onwards, they continued the old policy, and they lost a chance of aligning themselves in a more better way with the Russian Federation. Finally, Putin got fed up, and by 2005, 2006, went his own way. including in Ukraine and Georgia, etc. But Biden is still very much a little European. He's still very fixated on Europe. Trump is a pure American, and America is a multi-continental power. It's an Asian power. It's a European power. It's a South American power. It's an African power. It's a quadri-continental power. So Trump is very much part of that. And I think that's his movement. Make America great again means make America America again, Joyita.
Yeah, so the last question is, of course, about what is the what is going to happen in India-US relations? What kind of pressure will Trump be bearing? Any pressure on the Bangladesh situation, insisting on an election? What do you think is going to have Trump's policy towards India and towards the Indian subcontinent?
Look, in India, those elements who are firmly on the right side, where the Sino-Wahhabi lobby is concerned, and especially the threat of China and the centrality of the Indo-Pacific, will certainly be very close to Trump administration, and the Trump administration will react very well to them. Those who have a contrarian point of view, and there are plenty of them in India, unfortunately, who are all kinds of linkages with the Chinese, etc. They're not going to be kind to them, I can tell you. So I'm very hopeful that under Prime Minister Modi there will be very good relations, and a signal of that by Trump was the importance he gave our external affairs minister. Although he's technically
Yeah,
lower in protocol, he was given the
yeah,
same protocol as the head of state, and that is to indicate to India that look, Jaishankar has come, but we are treating him superbly because we believe the future rests with a strong India-US partnership. Those who believe in a strong India-US partnership, Joyita, and I think Prime Minister Modi is very much part of that, will have a very good relationship with President Trump. Those who believe that no, 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 today I'll smile at Xi, day after I'll smile at Trump, the day after that I'll smile at myself, the day after that I'll smile at Starmer. Look, Trump doesn't like these guys, and frankly, none of you and I will not like these guys, and I'm sure Prime Minister Modi does not like these guys. So I'm very hopeful under Prime Minister Modi there'll be a very close relationship in this emerging battle. And in this battle, the Trump team realizes that India is the critical partner. And we have to realize on our part, the US is the critical partner. It's not one way or one sided. Both sides have to tango. Both sides have to dance together. So, if once that happens, believe me, it's going to be a difficult ride because geopolitical currents are shifting. Today, you'll see everybody is talking about 2027 as the year when there could be a Taiwan war. It was openly predicted by Xi. Check my writing. I predicted this way, way back. Exactly that, 2027. So I can tell you, Joyita, we've got troubled times ahead, but India and the US, as partners, we can weather the storm. Thank you, Joyita. Jai
thank you,
Hind.
thank you. Yeah, Jai Hind. Thank you, Professor Nalapat, for being on the show. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.